Good morning and welcome to the Bill Moran Show. Today, actually, first of all, I have to say that Kelly won't be with us today. She is in England.
Ooh,
Yeah,
good for her.
yeah. So she just texted me a little while ago. They just got into their flat, as she calls it, and having a great time there. So you are not going to be hearing the stylings of Kelly today. So we missed her already. So Kelly, if you're out there listening, come on back soon.
Safe travels, Kelly.
Yeah, safe. They're there already. So, but hopefully they're having a great time. So with me today, I have Terry Healy, who is also another host here on WVLP. She has her own show on Mondays. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mondays at noon.
Mondays at noon. And so if you have a chance to tune in around then, please do. So it's kind of interesting to have someone on, and she is actually a transformational speaker and consultant, right?
Yes.
And one of the things, if you go up on our Facebook page and read, I gave a brief bibliography of some of the things that she's done, and we'll talk about those very shortly here. But why don't you, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself and how you came into being a transformational speaker, and what does that mean? What does that?
Well, let's start a little bit, I guess, with what does that mean? Because that's one of the most common questions I get asked is, well, what is that? You know, is it a motivational speaker or an inspirational speaker? And it's neither of those things. It actually is a way of approaching things with an intention that I set. So motivational speaking, inspirational speaking are wonderful things. They have places out there in the world. But when I speak or provide services for someone, I set an intention before I go up, and that is that somebody actually be able to take something and map it onto their lives so they can see something change for the future, not just get excited for a few days and then go back to the rut of the world, you know, when they go back to the work a day. So that's the distinction of transformation. So, and it could be small, it could be huge. I've had some pretty incredible responses to the work I do. My background is just, I think, a lot of sales, a lot of customer service, and what I found is that when I would do general sales work is, you know, my natural way of being is to start to coach, to start to help, to start to guide, and help people make the best decisions. So that's kind of how it evolved. And actually I dreamt about being a speaker, I'd say, for about the last 30 years. That's been a goal.
So it's interesting to hear the distinguishable difference between a motivational speaker and a transformational speaker. Right away with the Saturday Night, you know what I'm going to say, right? You're not a Chris Farley taking a dive on. You don't live in a trailer down by the river.
No, I don't have lakefront property, Bill.
Well, maybe someday, but hopefully you won't be in a trailer down by the river.
No.
So, and nor do you do swan dives on top of a coffee table.
Well, I don't know. It depends on how much wine.
Okay. Well, so yeah, there's this. So what if I hear you correctly, transformational is you actually create changes in their lives or get them to realize that they can make a change in their life.
Yeah, and I don't make the changes. I'm pretty cautious with how much ego I bring to the table. But what I do is I provide the tools, and then I facilitate someone making those shifts. Kind of, you know, one of the conversations that I have, one of the group experiences that I facilitate is called Finding Love Offline, and I'm getting ready to launch that again if anyone's out there looking for love. But what I noticed is that you know, we walk around like one gentleman who said, you know, he end up right around the 3rd or 4th month of dating a gal. I wake up and look at next to me and think, oh my gosh, I've got another crazy one. You know, so kind of what the conversation was with him is, you know, no irony there that you're talking about, you know, 8 or 9 women that are sharing the bed with you, and what's the common denominator? You know, what is it that you're doing, or what you're putting out? What are you thinking that has you wake up next to another crazy woman? So it's almost like helping somebody get that awareness, and then now what do you do with it? You know, so then there's a lot of practical tools and applications to help somebody implement something different for their lives.
Right, and so where do you start out with? Is your forte in group, or do you do group speaking, or do you do one-on-one?
I do both. One-on-one is more of the coaching work that I do. And it's actually, I'm pretty effective in both, and that's probably just the lifelong training and the work that I've done. You know, how I've made my donuts for the last 30 years has given me the opportunity to do that. And there's different dynamics to things. You know, what I find is that when I do small group work, it's pretty amazing, because we can actually learn watching somebody else cut their teeth. You know, we can glean for ourselves and actually make some shifts for ourselves. So in all ways it's effective, but just everything has its own conversation.
Yeah. And so let's talk about some of the things that you've done, particularly the locations you've done. I see in your bio that you've actually taught to groups at schools and have given speeches to school groups. Can you speak a bit about that?
Yeah, actually the first opportunity that I had was speaking to a group of college students at Indiana University Northwest. And I have to tell you, I was a little bit nervous about that. You know, going in and capturing and holding the attention of most of the group was millennial. It was a little daunting to me, and I thought, my goodness, am I going to be able to hold the room? You know, and what I found is that I did. You know, they were all pretty mesmerized with it. And one of the things I do when I speak to a large group is I send out a form and I ask for some feedback, because, you know, I'm growing too, and I like to know what's effective and what's not and what's powerful. And what I realized was the most profound content and confirmation and wonderful information I got back was from that group, more so than when I've spoken to professional people and that sort of thing. So
great. And just again here, because we had a little audio problem at the beginning, we're here with Terry Healy, who's a transformational speaker. And also, I want to tell you, for the fans of Kelly Risala who are tuning in for no other reason to listen to Kelly, Kelly is in England right now and enjoying some time with friends there. And so we wish her a very safe trip, and I hope she's enjoying her. We already miss her, actually. So she just texted me a little while ago. So getting back after it. So you won't hear regional rants today. So I hope we don't lose listeners.
So you're right, we don't want to do that. We never want to do that. But on that, you know, conversation about students, I'd like to also share too something that I'm working on, another project. What ultimately happens is that when I speak before a group, somebody in the group will approach me after the fact and say, hey, oh my gosh, that was pretty amazing stuff. Would you come speak to my people? And I made a promise never to turn down an opportunity to speak. So I had a gal approach me and she asked me if I would come to Wisconsin. And I said, of course I'll go to Wisconsin. Who's the audience there? And she is affiliated with a high school that has our nation's highest suicide rate. And she said, you know, we have had many people come up to try to help our kids, and this has been going on for a number of years. And she said, we've never had a woman, interesting, and she said, we've never had anybody like you. So that's a work in progress. A little bit of hoops and fingerprints and background checks to be able to go and talk to high school students, but that's probably going to come the fall of this year, is what looks like time frame wise. But what I had told her is, it's been a minute since I've spoken high school. You know, my kids are grown, and so what I'll do is probably go up a few days early and kind of wander the halls a little bit, kind of catch the conversation, see what's happening out there, and then be able to provide the best content I can for them. Another thing that I'm working on too, as we speak, is I just engaged with the Boys and Girls Club here locally, and I don't know if that was in my budget.
Just kidding.
and the thing that, you know how your kids can always sense that you need to make an important phone call, and that's when they're going to jump up and down and ask for the Cheetos.
Right.
So it's that thing. But the Boys and Girls Club will be a lot of fun. That one I'm going to be doing in Valparaiso in May of this year. And I actually approached them and said, hey, how about putting together an empowerment series for kids? And they were kind of intrigued, you know, what does that look like? So when we sat down to kind of work it through and brainstorm it, what's the most powerful thing we can bring to these kids is I'm going to be doing something for tweens through teens, so nobody younger than 12, and then up through the high school age. And kind of a conversation around kind of teaching them a little bit more about self-value, and how to set some boundaries for themselves, you know, how to not be texting their body parts all over the United States. I also want to teach them and bring them through some processes of defining their brand, I thought that the other day, like, what a cool thing. You know, if you could identify what your personal brand was when you were 14, oh my gosh, right? Would that not change the trajectory of where you landed now, you know? So we'll be heading that direction with them, which will be a lot of fun. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, as you know, kids in school today it's not like back in the day when you and I went to school. We won't mention what year that is, by the way. But they are going through a lot. I mean, a lot of difficulties. They're exposed to technology we never had as kids. They're exposed to those social pressures, bullying. Yeah, we had bullying, but it was outright physical. Oh, don't worry about that. For some reason, and I'm not sure why, it's not the usual time for the emergency broadcast test, but it happens during our show.
We're just having that kind of show tonight.
Yeah, it never happens during your show, right?
Never.
No,
no one ever calls in.
I think well, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of people listening, so we're going to do the emergency broadcast test.
All right.
Now, I'm not sure why that happens, but nothing to be alarmed about, because that's actually Tuesday, I believe, the emergency broadcast happens. So, one of the things that's interesting is you are talking to the age group, which is really being affected right now by what's happening in school. I mean, we've talked to students that really don't feel safe in school anymore. And that's not right. I mean, for crying out loud, for anything, when they go to school, they should be about learning and communing with other people their age and actually enjoying that experience. And my goodness, now they're fearful to go to school. The bullying and then obviously the shootings.
And the second guest that I had on my show was Ali Gersich, the Valparaiso High School senior who, is the catalyst for our walkout locally here. Phenomenal young lady.
Oh, amazing, isn't she?
Yeah, and I'm going to have her on before she runs away in the fall. So she's my late summer interview as well. But I was not aware of that situation. So all of the kind of stuff that we get kind of helps put more tools in my tool belt, for how do I serve, when I go out and do the things that I do with the youth. And I understand the whole conversation about, how connected that they are technologically, but I also go a step further with that and have in the past as well with, kind of how that creates disconnect. So to kind of dovetail back to, when I do group coaching for people looking for love, is that technology has actually been counterintuitive for us to snuggle up because we don't do that organic thing anymore. We swipe and we get on our phones, and it keeps us from having to do the things that we have to do. Slick back your hair and, double check that your tie is straight and then go out in the room and try to fetch it up. So.
Right, and you brought a very good point is, that the technology is, when it's supposed to be bringing us closer, in actuality it's driving us further apart. Yeah. And I have a friend that, and this is kind of controversial in itself, is a professional snugglist. And you've probably heard of that, and it's met with a lot of controversy, obviously. But one of the things that's driving the interest in that is that the psychological deficits of people using technology to communicate, as opposed to, so we have a new thing that's popping up. People feel disconnected from society because they don't have that physical connection because they use this. And so,
when you talk about your professional snugglist, I'm sure he shared with you, but some of our listeners may not realize that, human touch, and when we get, a pat on the arm, when we get a hug, our bodies actually release certain chemicals in response to that. And so that there's like a physiology thing going on, not just even what's happening between our two ears. But what I know, and this is interesting, I was just sharing with a client that, I watch people, I'm an observer, because that again helps me hone my craft. But I have watched two people out in a public venue, and I could see that there was initial attraction. So I'm looking across the room, and then I could see a little bit of an approach starting to happen. And then as the approach started to come closer, I saw that one of those people, and it was the gentleman in this conversation, got scared, normal, right? We get a little bit of thunkety-thunkety-thunk, right, when we approach a person. And his response to that was he backstepped, pulled his phone out of his pocket, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt he was on an online dating app just because of the way his hand was going from
swiping left and right.
Correct.
Oh, boy.
And so the problem.
Not that I'm knowledgeable about those.
Oh, and I am, and it's just a painful thing. But the point was that here was this organic opportunity for this man to make approach, or for this woman to, open up and invite approach, which she probably could do a little bit more effectively than she was. But that all of that came to a screeching halt because of the comfort of the technology. It's almost like easier to pull out your phone and start seeing if someone finds you attractive than to go forward and go, hi, my name's, I'm so-and-so. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely is something that is affecting our community. And, I've read so many books about community and how community health, and I still remember a study that was done back in the 50s, I believe, by a physician who moved out east and discovered two vastly different communities. One was a community that virtually transplanted from Italy to the United States and was a mining community, and then a hodgepodge community that was typical, Americans from all background. And one of them had vastly different health. In fact, virtually heart disease was non-existent, although there wasn't any difference in the diet between the two.
Okay.
In fact, the Italians actually probably ate worse with all the carbs that those. Okay. I have no hate mail from Italians. Okay,
right.
Please.
They ate well.
They ate well. Yes, very well. He found the difference after boiling it down was that the Italian community that transplanted one by one, starting in the 1800s, communed. I mean, multi-generations lived under the same roof. And also that there was it didn't stop there. There was neighbor community that was so strong compared to the isolation it was in the other. And he noted, because he thought that something with diet, something had to be different about this. And he was automatically thinking it was physical. In a sense it was, but it wasn't the physicality as eating something or eating, but it was feeling reassured because you had other people there to talk to and worry about, leave your kids with. And where the other ones, there is stress, a lot of stress, which, we all know what stress does. So there's a lot to speak with that, and just generally the way society's changed.
Well, and I, one of the commitments I have is to maybe start to hope and be a catalyst for a shifting of that. So when I work with most every group, it involves some level of disconnecting from technology for a few minutes, and trying to implement that. I agree. I love the study about the communities, and I read something similar, but not that particular study. But again, remembering that certain types of physical touch makes us release certain chemicals into our bodies. And it's not just feel-good chemicals, it's chemicals that actually help our bodies self-heal, because our bodies, I think, want to self-heal. But also to just getting into that emotional state. So if a neighbor says, hey, how are ya? How's the wife? That actually releases chemicals in your body too. So there's a physiological state to it too, not just the pasta and the olive oil. There's a little bit more to it than that. But yeah, it's I think what my hope is and what my heart says is that, at a certain point, it might be another 5 years, we're going to be shifting back toward connectedness, because we're going to be enough of this. And personally, I'm pretty cautious of what I allow between my 2 ears. And I'm careful about how much I'll delve into social media as well. I don't watch television as a rule, because I find that we've become desensitized to other people's pain. That which they call reality television is just someone exposing their pain and their awkwardness and what's challenging in life. And I think we get desensitized to it, and that doesn't do well for us.
Connie's giving us hugs.
Hi, Connie. Thanks for the hug. Hey, I'm feeling the chemicals.
And we have another fan of Kelly's. Where's Kelly? Is Kelly going to be calling in? Okay, I told you, folks. She's in England, and maybe next week, I don't know, because I'm not sure she has an international call plan. Gosh, I got a feeling I'm going to lose listeners here if she doesn't call in.
No. Everyone needs a vacation.
Yeah, but boy, yeah. So, yeah, and that's something that, don't you feel that with the latest, especially with the Me Too move and all, and I'm not trying to speak it either way, but people now are going to be afraid to touch for a while. You know, all this, okay, what am I going to be exposed to? But justifiably, I mean, there's some women out there who've experienced some awful things, particularly in the entertainment industry, that is just now making, and Kelly could speak to that because she is an actor, and it's just god-awful things. So unfortunately, that's going to have a negative effect on us for a while because people are going to be afraid. And, you know, particularly males, as we all should be, and we just need to act responsibly, but that has set a rift for a while. And then, so I think that at this point that it was a good rift because there's certain males out there that needed to get that message. Without question. And they needed to get that message that this is inappropriate. But what that has done to our society, it's not only affecting the females, which has had an adverse effect. You know, I get that and understand that because I've known many, been very close friends with women that have experienced that. But the danger is, gosh, it not only didn't affect them, but my gosh, what it's doing to our society right now as a whole. So those men need to take ownership for not just what they did to the females, but what they did to our society. For years now, people are going to lose that touch, and because they're going to be afraid.
I don't know that I agree with that one. I think certainly we're going to experience that for a while, but I do believe the pendulum will swing back toward a healthier balance. Unfortunately, I think though sometimes on bigger issues the pendulum has to swing far to the right, you know, for us to actually find some shifting. I think it's a great thing, and I do think it'll come back because we're naturally cut and wired to want that connection. So it'll be. I think it's ultimately a good thing. It's almost like you know, you think about the women's rights movement in the 70s. Do you remember when that was going on?
Oh, yes.
You probably read it in history books because you weren't around then. But
excuse me?
well, you know, I think you're.
I don't think she. Yeah, I wish Kelly were here because she'd tell you exactly how old I am.
Yeah.
Kelly and I are about the same age.
Yeah.
And we're
probably around the same age.
I've seen. I was around during the 70s,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Thank you for that compliment.
No,
but I was, I was born in '60, so I also saw all the '60s and went through that. So
then you were definitely in the thick of that. So, you know, I look at it and I equate it to that. It's like the pendulum had to swing so far to the right to get the shift to happen, to get the needle to budge. And then ultimately we've kind of centered back, you know, to how we're wired and how we're supposed to interact together.
Right. And that's something, and in fact, you know, during that time we had the love movement, and there was a move for you love, and oh boy, I still remember going down to IU when I was a little kid with my dad to visit my sister who was there during like '71. Boy, my dad told me, put your head down now. And I looked up and said, wow, those two are kissing. Put your head down now. And yeah, there was a whole love thing going on down at IU during that period of time. And Teresa, if you're listening, yes, okay, yeah. You weren't one of the ones I saw. That was my sister. Yeah. So I got to be careful sometimes because one of her daughters, my niece, is listening. So I have to be very careful what I say about my sister, the hippie.
Yeah, right. Well, we never know what they know.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk the analogy of the pendulum is very good because we experience things in our society that cause that effect.
Well, and I think sometimes we have to get fed up. We have to be done with it. You know, to actually for something to change and you know, it takes enough momentum. You know, it's not just a small group of people going enough is enough. It has to really impact us, and I think that's happening for us collectively on so many levels. You know, in the world that we're living in, so many people are just polarized politically, and I don't care where you stand. It's no kind. I have my views, you have yours, but it's taking that kind of energy and enough is enough in-ness for us to, I think, probably make some serious changes.
Yeah, it's definitely. So with that, I just want to let you know, we are Facebook Live, so if any of you out there, other than making statements that you still don't wear a bra, Connie.
Oh, good for you, Connie. You go, girl.
By all means, if you have any questions for Terry, you know, feel free to type them out there, and we'll ask her. That's the whole nice thing about Facebook Live. And yes, Kelly is not here.
Kelly's in
I'm
England.
sorry.
Where is she in England? Do you know what area she's in?
Oh gosh, you would have to ask me that.
Okay, yeah.
London, I think. You know, I just
England proper, UK proper. I went there in 2010, and I did not do the beaten path. I didn't do the normal things that you're supposed to do when you go over there. I went to a community called Brighton, and it was a seaside community, and it was just phenomenal. So that's on the bucket list someday to get back over there and do it right.
Yeah.
So.
And I think they're going to go over to France as well. So they're going to take a jump over to France.
Well, good
So,
for her.
yeah.
Does she speak any French, or she's going to wing it?
No. Oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this.
That's okay. She's not listening.
I've never
She's
heard. She does speak Spanish. I know
Okay,
that. So I
yeah.
don't know if she speaks French or not.
Probably not. I would imagine she would have whipped that one out on you already and said, hey.
Yeah. If she's listening now, I'm definitely going to get in trouble when she gets back. That's
I think
another
she's gonna
thing.
miss this show.
No, she's actually,
she really?
she told me she was going to, not on Facebook Live, but she's going to stream it there.
Oh, the
So,
.org. Yeah,
yeah.
love it. Love it.
So, the most, the thing that she was stressed about was she always called it the loo, to go to the
Yes,
bathroom, going
yes.
to the loo.
Yes.
Well, they don't refer it to as the loo anymore.
Oh, they
So
don't.
she was stressed about that, like a whole week. Why am I going? I've never called it a toilet when I went over there. Yeah, so get used to it, Kelly.
Oh, funny, they've Americanized it.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah.
Well, someone will translate for her. They'll point her in the right direction. I'm not worried about her.
Oh, she speaks Hello Kitty.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And I don't know what language that is, but I probably, if I speak it, I don't know. Maybe I speak it in my sleep.
She has a whole fan club up there that kind of scares me
Oh,
sometimes.
is Connie the girl? Is
Connie is kind of like our show fan, but
Okay.
Kelly, because she's an actress, has
Yeah.
like a whole group of fans out
Oh,
there.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks
So,
I'm glad her fans are tuning in.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, it was suggested by someone that if she wasn't on our show, I wouldn't have any listeners.
Oh, stop. Ouch.
They're probably right. They're
Ouch.
probably right.
Oh, goodness.
And with that, we are going to take a station break and try to recoup from that information. So we'll be right back with you. Well, here, this hopefully will satisfy someone. That's Kelly's voice.
You are listening to the Bill Moran Show on WVLP.
Right.
3.1 FM.
Okay, for you Kelly fans out there, that was her doing our pre-recorded intermission. So,
Nice to hear her sweet voice.
yeah.
So, Bill, I didn't get a chance to say thank you for the invitation to come on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it. And again, Kelly, Terry, got Kelly in my mind. Terry does have a show here on Monday at noon, and so please tune in then. And what do you have a rebroadcast, or you just?
No, I haven't gotten to the place of rebroadcasting
Okay.
yet. So there may be a time that I have to do that, but I'm going to kind of keep that in my back pocket if I'm traveling or something, can't get a show together.
But to give you an idea, we are doing Facebook Live on the Bill Moran Show, and Terry is doing it on her own
I am.
Facebook site.
Mhm.
So why don't you share with people your social media information?
Yeah, on Facebook it's Terry Healy Transformational Speaker is my page, and then YouTube is just my name, Terry Healy. Subscribe to that if you are interested in it, because that I have to get to a certain number of subscribers to get my own identification versus some hodgepodge of initials and numbers and things like that. What I use the Facebook for though is I kind of had a thought that everyone could use a little bit of inspiration here and there, and sometimes just something to make you think for a moment, something to get you over a hump when you're having a challenge. So what I do is I record short videos, 2 to 3 minutes of length, and just kind of introduce a topic and let it roll out there. And it's just been pretty interesting, the response that's come back from that. And what I've learned, because there was a moment that I was recording these and putting them out, and that's no small job, you know, to do that. And I had gone to my daughter and I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. Nobody's, you know, got three people that are interested in seeing those, and she encouraged me to continue to go because she said at some point someone's going to log in and then all these videos will be there for them. But then right after that, I'd gotten a lot of people saying that they were really, really grateful for the content, but they weren't, you know, giving me a thumbs up on Facebook or commenting on them. So I think a lot of times we're out there and we're impacting lives and we don't even know it.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you go to the media of recording, I find it as well. People, and you know, I'll put a video out and we'll get like 1 or 2 likes, and then all of a sudden I'll be running to someone in our coffee shop where we do our other show, and they said, wow, that was a pretty good show. And I said, really? Well, why didn't you? No. And I think what happens logically is they click on and watch the video, and then they move on and forget to, you know, leave any feedback, which is fine. It's fine.
I think there's something about identifying yourself with what it is that you're enjoying, because I agree with you on the feedback thing. That may take a minute or two to put something nice up there and an emoji, but you know, just to hit the like button doesn't take but half of a fraction of a second. And kind of my understanding is that when you do that, somebody could be aware that, oh my goodness, now you're really liking Bill Moran show or Terry Healy, transformational speaker.
God forbid.
Heaven forbid.
So I think that's what it is. They just view it because you see the number of views that you get, and they don't necessarily collate to the likes. But I'm not, you know, it doesn't bother me. But but one thing I will say about your videos, I've watched them. I've gone to your website and watched them, and you know, one thing, first of all, they're very well done.
Well, thank you.
And you know, I thought you had a camera crew or something happening there, and you're just using your like iPhone, and which is, that speaks to Apple products, but and then the content, you know, is meaningful. So they're kind of like short bits of inspirational things that you can get periodically, and that's helpful in this day and age, you know, where you're exposed to so much negativity. You need to get tuned into something positive.
Well, and that's, you know, and that was why that drives me a lot. That's part of my personal commitment to things. And when I proposed my show idea for WVLP to the station owner, to Paul, what I had said is, you know, we're inundated with that, you know, and I think that there needs to be a forum and a place where we can have some feel goods. We can get like connected to somebody's story, you know, in a good way, you know, sort of feeding off of their pain. And so I'd just like to be the counterbalance to that. So.
Yeah, it is, especially when we're, you know, every time we turn on the TV, it's people bashing each other, and so that positive thing is good, because you could get, and that could be the downfall again to our society, is, you know, we can only take so much negative. And
well, and again, I'm the glass half full, in case you haven't figured that one out, is what I think is that there will become a tipping point, you know, where we're saturated with that, and we all just go, okay, enough. I'm done with, you know, paying people to put their dirty laundry and let it flail in the wind in front of me. I think we are going to get to that point. So I'm positive, and I'm looking for that, but I just can't let it in. It just, you know, it makes it harder to get out of bed. It makes it harder to get out there and do what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. So it is interesting that you are moving towards something, because I know you do something besides this, but you're moving towards something positive and reaffirmations and positive mindsets, which it's completely different. I constantly have to remind myself when I get up in the morning, okay, get rid of all the negative thoughts, because I could guarantee you, if I were to chart everything that happened to me in the morning, and call it the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's far more noticeable bad things happening when I wake up with a negative attitude than when I wake up and, man, I'm going to get in the gym, I'm going to go out and have a great show, and I'm going to go into work and have a great day at work, versus, oh boy, what's going to happen today? Who's going to malign me today? It's just a completely different mindset.
Yeah, no? And I think people smell that. You know, honestly. And I think that, you know, they talk about you know, law of attraction and things like that, but and there's definitely an energetic component to it. But I think that we like to be around positive people. I think that I know I can speak for myself that if I'm with somebody and they're in a really low space, after pretty short period of time, they're elevating, so their mood's changing, their conversation's perking up a bit. So I think a lot of that's just kind of how we respond to each other. But I just, it's funny how, I always lived my life believing that people wanted to be the best people that they could be, and they wanted to contribute, and they wanted to help other people, have an extraordinary life. And I realized, it took me to my 40s till I said, wait a second, everybody's not wired that way. But one of the things that I've always been committed to is empowering other people. So, how I kind of backed into speaking, because I kind of back into things, and other people do that too, I guess. But is at that time, as I remember now, I dreamt about being a speaker for 30 years, right? So I drive around the car and I would have these daydreams of speaking to groups of people, and then I would say, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And then those feelings would bubble up. Every 5 to 10 years it would come up again. So I had spent a number of years in the mortgage industry, kind of coaching people on life choices, on how to improve their credit, and then I saw that there was like a really negative conversation, and the credit repair industry, people were getting really fleeced. Unfortunately, to put a Band-Aid on a flesh wound with all these promises of erasing bad credit history, and I knew that there was a legitimate way to correct that. So at the urging of a couple people around me, I actually just started a kitchen-based business where I would help people legitimately clean up their credit, and I would educate them. Stuff happened to you. Got it.
Were you a mortgage officer? Or
I actually own a mortgage company.
Oh, you own a mortgage?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So I had quite a history of that. So here I was doing this kitchen-based business, and people were loving it. I charge a nominal fee and get people from point A to point B. So I had a girlfriend who said, she worked in a bank, and she said, would you be open to speaking to people in our bank branch? And I said, well, yeah, I'll go, right? And there I was in the lobby of a local bank branch in Highland, and doing a little bit of educating to the community in the middle of the lobby, and I'm teaching people about credit scores. Because what I knew and what I learned is that, we are so judged by our credit score, right? But here we are going, but how do you figure it out? How do I fix it? How do I even know who I am and what I am in that conversation? And they had no personal power around it. So I did like a 20-minute educational series on credit scoring. And so the first time that I did this, I was a nervous wreck, right? And I'm up there, and there are people doing their banking transactions with the tellers, and as they're trying to go back to their car, they're like frozen in time and just absolutely watching and captivated by the information I'm providing, because nobody's talking about it, right? And at the end of this this educational time, I had a gentleman raise his hand, and I looked back, and I had seen him, sitting in the audience, very nicely dressed, with a wife also. Could tell that they had some money, and he said, I'm a surgeon, and I'm contemplating filing a bankruptcy on my medical practice, and I'm wondering how it'll impact blah, 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 blah. And what I thought was, as I was formulating the answer for him about his question, was, oh my goodness gracious, here is a surgeon who is disclosing to a room full of strangers in the middle of a bank branch lobby that he's contemplating a bankruptcy of his practice. And then another gentleman raised his hand, and he said, I don't have that guy's problem, but I drive a truck. This is my girl sitting next to me, and I want to get her a house, and here's my problem. What am I going to do? And so I'm formulating and answering his question, and also thinking, wow, here's somebody with quite a bit of testosterone announcing to a room full of strangers. And what I knew when I left was that there was something about the information I was providing completely, for sure. But there was also something about what, like a foundation that it laid, that those people could step into that and make disclosure and feel comfortable enough to get questions to those very personal and painful questions. So, so I went around actually talking about credit repair for about a year. People would go, oh my goodness, that's great, would you come teach my people? And, excuse me, and then I found myself in an organization in downtown Gary, and I was talking about credit to some people that were court mandated by the city of Gary to go through parenting classes. And they, low level, like so we've got some curfew violation, we've got truancy issues. So that's their kids were, having issues with that kind of thing. And so they were mandated by the city to go through a 10-week class. So every time they get a new cycle of parents, the organizer of the not-for-profit would ask if I would come back in and do the credit thing, and I said yes. And then finally I said, I know that they're really appreciating it because she told me they love having me come in, but I want to speak to something closer to my heart. And she said, you could talk about anything. Just come in. They love you. So that's how it actually kind of segued from the credit to the interpersonal stuff.
So it's interesting, you being in the mortgage industry, going into counseling people on credit, which when we're off line, I'll have to tell you something. I think we have a common friend.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, the interesting thing is that's a real stressful point in your life, going to a mortgage.
Yeah.
In fact, didn't they say that causes mortgage, going to apply for a mortgage, and building a house are the two most stressful things on a marriage.
Yeah, interesting.
And so
Probably higher than infidelity, right? I'm kidding.
I think that's a trump.
That's probably even called.
But yeah, it's that definitely is. But interesting enough, that could lead to it. But I know, gosh, every couple I know that we're building, it
oh
just
my goodness,
I've
done it a couple
constantly.
times. Very stressful.
Yeah,
Very
and
stressful.
then going through the stress of 2008. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I lived through that too. I was building at that time, 2007. I was building a new home, and selling a home that I called my midlife crisis. A monstrosity that had more bathrooms than I cared to scrub. So yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people are going through that. They built big, and money was cheap, and
Right.
banks were giving out mortgages like candy, and
Right.
bam. And so let's go back to number one. How does someone contact you if they're interested in? And you do offer one-on-one sessions.
I do.
And what does that look like? And then how do they contact you to set up a group session?
Well, as far as like one-on-one doing coaching work with me, that has typically at least a 12-week commitment to it, because you can't make permanent life changes in a day. You need to implement some things and get some traction to it. Get some history around it, and then watch how it evolves and what comes up in conflict to it. But it's a very personal thing. I coach people. I just finished a coaching engagement with a woman who is a realtor, and we completely branded her and set her out, distinguished her from the mass of thousands in that, and she's just achieving incredible success, starting out a real estate career, coming at it that way. Again, coaching people on all different things, a myriad of different things. It's not therapy, it's not counseling, that's not my education, it's not my expertise. And then I also do group work. So I'm just starting now another group, and I call it a group transformation experience, where it's going to be 6 women. All of them are single, and all of them are saying, where are all the good guys? Well, they're out there. You just don't know how to open up and let them in, and how to work with that once you do. So I'll be starting a group session with them, and it keeps it, it's really neat. It keeps it a little bit more affordable for people, and again, we learn sometimes watching somebody else grow. I also, and now have been doing workshops in organizational and corporate settings. So, if somebody has a company with a certain objective, we can speak to that. A lot of really good information on branding. Personal and professional branding seems to be pretty a hot topic right now in places that are looking to engage me for that. As far as contact, you're welcome to find me on Facebook or via my website. It's just my name, TerryHealy.com. It's TerryHealy.com. And on there's a contact page with my, you can email me directly, or my cell phone's out there as well. So.
All right, and do you have like a syllabus of some of the things that you offer, like in specific directions?
I need to get that up. It's interesting that you say that. I'm working with a web designer as we speak, because my website was designed almost 2 years ago, and it spoke to the place where I was then, which is not the place that I am now. So that's in the works.
Okay. But by all means, the way to contact you would be by social media, or do you have a email address that you want to share?
It's the email is my name as well. I just love my name, right?
Yep.
It's Terry, TERI at terryhealy.com. Yeah.
Cool. And so, say if someone wants to, and if you're not comfortable responding to this, don't by all means say just contact me. So if someone wants to set up a one-on-one session, what are they looking at cost-wise to do?
It depends on what we're tackling and how often we tackle. So there isn't I don't have a flat program with a flat fee because everybody works differently. So somebody may only need to be coached once every other week, and some people may need it twice a week. And there may be times that we do, I just customize the package for them. So actually I coach people that aren't even in our area. So I do some things face to face. I have a couple that I'm coaching out of Oregon. So that's obviously a virtual thing. We use FaceTime and coach that way, and we do once a month coaching that way. I have people in the Chicagoland market that we do it virtually. So the cost, I'm not a canned person. I don't think, I'm not a one-size-fits-all type of, I don't believe in that system. So what I do is I work with what I think is going to create the end, meet the end objective, I guess, in the best way and the most economical way for the client.
And so a company now, moving from that to a company, and I think like team building and things, those, are you able to help companies that are, may have a specific issue with group functionality, getting a particular group to work together?
That's not my expertise. Not that I couldn't speak to it, but I would almost rather defer that to somebody a little bit more in that direction. Mine has been more so like mindset management. It seems to be the biggest thing. A lot of things that call to me and that companies are interested in are things that are our own personal skills. So one topic that I can guarantee if I'm talking to a group of women, they're going to really want to hear this one is, I call it getting out of your own way, and it's how to eliminate self-sabotage. That's a very popular topic.
Yeah.
I'm also working with another Fortune 100 company right now that is in the process of a transition, and they have an excellent management staff that have been there for 10 to 20 years, and the management staff is bucking the transition. So they're looking for someone to come in and facilitate, helping those managers that are of tremendous value to the corporation kind of come on board with where their company's going.
Yeah, when you speak of self-sabotage, because really your inner self is a lot where that starts, and a lot of people can't be self-reflective, and that's one of the problems. They can't look inward and identify, well, probably I'm being perceived incorrectly, probably I'm putting the wrong thing out there. So I think that would be extremely helpful. It's
pretty profound. And I've gotten a tremendous response when I deliver that keynote. Because again, I put out a forum where people can give me feedback. What a great thing for me and a great thing for them. But that one gets a lot of good traction.
Yeah, I'll give you an instance that I happen to be in a conversation with someone who's running for elected office, and they were so worried about interviewing, the interview process. And I found out afterwards, after going through and it was about an hour-long interview, they turned to me and they said, my goodness, this is not what I was expecting. And I'm like, why? Well, I thought you were very, I'm not even going to mention it, but one of the camps. And right away Kelly started laughing and saying, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah.
So but I began realizing, okay, I'm giving out something that gives people the impression I'm exactly opposite to what I am. So I began thinking since then, okay, I'll grow a beard. Probably that will change that. It doesn't change. But that is powerful, because here a person was kind of like worried how I was going to conduct the interview based upon what they thought my beliefs were, just mainly because something I was giving off, and so I don't know.
Well, and I think it's fantastic that you took a look at yourself with that, because that's an opportunity. That's a coachable moment, is what I call that. But also, just be real clear that person holds the majority of the responsibility for that, because there's something about you that's triggering something in him. So he's already having a conversation with himself about the conversation that you guys are going to be having.
It was a she, by the way.
by the way.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
but
okay.
it's,
Here's
yeah,
the-
and not all elected official or
No,
people
I
running for
know.
office. In fact, this is,
Well, you know what? I just saw a bunch of signage on the way in, so it was like a lot of guys were
you know, every
on the
time,
corner.
every time primary and election turns around, I think of that old 70s song, sign, sign, everywhere, sign. Yeah, except
Walking
that,
with the scenery.
actually, Kelly and I are trying to work on a parody of that,
Oh,
related to, yeah, so look out for that.
Oh, I love parodies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do that with my kids all the
Yeah,
time.
so when she gets back from England, I think she may be working on it
Oh, I
downtown,
love it.
and so
I love
maybe
it.
it'll be right in
Well,
time.
And I did that with my kids when it was. I did one of my favorite ones is Garbage Night, which I did a parody to. It's late because it's Ladies' Night because it's Garbage Night and the feelings right. I wrote it night.
People love singing on our show, so keep it up.
See, that's something about you. Like, yeah.
No, it's someone singing on our show because Kelly sung, and oh my gosh, it went off the wall.
Oh,
Yeah, she started. We're doing mic checks, waiting for our person to show up,
Yeah.
and she just bursted into these TV series themes.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And she was going through, and
Yeah.
people just loved
Yeah,
it.
we
And-
love that stuff.
yeah, so keep
Yeah.
on singing. No, we have
My
got
Garbage Night parody.
Yeah. So, okay. So,
your politician would be a great candidate for personal branding, personal professional branding. My goodness gracious.
well, there you go. That's a
Yeah.
new market for you. You
Yeah.
can, because that's so important.
It's
And I, coaching candidates for because and especially being versed in something that people are extremely passionate about and. And so I've interviewed, let's see, 3 or 4 people running for office, and all of them, I kind of gave them hints. You gotta tune up on this because there are people out there that's what they're interested in.
Right.
And but again, that's perception, and your success as a candidate could be. And the shame about it is you can have views vastly different, but they aren't communicated well.
Right.
So then. I know there's millions being spent on that at the higher level,
Oh,
the
sure.
federal
Yeah,
level.
not our
So,
local.
right, yeah, and some local, but not very many. But so we've got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything else you want to share with, maybe about your social media, maybe more about what you do on your show and what your show is like?
Well, and thank you for asking that because the show is relatively new. I've had 6 shows so far, and I am always on the lookout for people that fit with the theme that I want to produce. And my show is called Extraordinary Transformation, which is part of my branding. And what I look for is people, a guest that has either experienced some profound personal transformation, or that they're bringing transformation to the community or their organization. So if anyone fits that bill, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have a chat with you and see if it's a fit for what I'm up to. But yeah, thank you for that. And as far as the social media, that's a work in progress. Feel free to take a peek at my Facebook. You don't have to subscribe to the page. If you want to, you're certainly welcome to, but I don't require that. The same content is also in my YouTube. And I also produce a weekly blog that I put out, so people can subscribe to that as well. But yeah, the videos are nice, and I'm actually doing a little bit more writing lately because you could have asked me 10 years ago if I'd ever write a book, and I'd say, yeah, no, not this girl. But it turns out that that's in there, and that's coming up, and that's coming out, so keep an eye open for that.
Book. Yeah, actually, I'm not going to scare people. I actually have notes in the process, but this is not about me.
It could be about you, but we
No,
only,
it isn't.
we only have 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, but boy, it's
There's so
going to
much
be
coaching
interesting.
I do together.
It's going to be interesting. So that's okay. So I think we've got everything covered. Unless you have something else, I'm going to have to pay more attention to your show. Actually Mondays has been crazy lately, and since you came on, I did see your show with the student. And, and I want to tell you what, we had her on here within a group of adults, a panel discussion with Sheriff Reynolds and John Groth, who represented the education part. And boy, I tell you, that girl,
She's amazing.
I think the adults were shocked at her maturity and her ability to challenge them. That girl is.
She's one of those. She's
Yeah.
one of those that you're going to see in the future for sure. And I'm really looking forward to having her on again before she runs away. I think she's going to Romania, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
In the fall to do some work over there. But yeah, I'd love to explore different things with my show as well. I've actually even thought about opening it up and having kind of a panel here and doing a little bit of group coaching. Wouldn't that be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah. I love
Where?
panel discussions. Actually, that's what I like doing on our show. It's
Right.
I love getting people together and discussing issues. And it gets challenging having to operate all this equipment and do
Sure,
that. But
sure.
it's that's where I love just getting input from people and getting opinions voiced. So yes.
And just one quick story, because I'm looking at the clock. We've got time for one quick story, but to go back to how I knew this is what I was supposed to do when I grew up, was I was working at that not-for-profit in Gary, and the last time that I was in, a woman stayed after everyone had left and told me that she had heard me speak there about 3 months prior, and she asked the judge if she could go back through the program again because she wanted the opportunity to hear me speak. And she said, I don't remember what you talked about, but what I knew was after I heard you, a couple days later I realized that all I was ever doing was screaming at my kids. And I stopped screaming. And she showed me pictures of her children. And she told me what was really remarkable about her kids. And she had never seen those things before. And I thanked her and got in my car and thought, after I got done crying, and I thought, boy, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. Because in that moment that she heard me speak, and the topic was shame, her life changed. Her kids' lives changed. And who they couple with and how they raise their own, forever different.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, so thanks for
Yeah.
letting me share that.
Is that? Yeah. Thank you. Before we go, we got about 1 minute. Let's talk about Stars Over Belleville.
Oh,
Wasn't that awesome?
That was amazing.
Oh my gosh! Second year I've attended. Last year, interesting. I think it had to do with the weather. Although they're both good crowds, but man, the talent! Wow!
Oh my goodness,
And
you just have no idea what
there
I
are
have here.
2 Emmy-nominated performers.
Really?
Yeah, and
Oh.
2 Emmy, and so the talent was great. Stephen Kronk even kept his interesting jokes under control at the
Yeah.
suggestion of Paul Schreider,
Very
our boss.
good.
But man, that was great. So just to bring it up, folks, next year, mark your calendars around this time of year. It is an awesome way to support this station, number one, and it is an awesome way to listen to some of the talent that we have in this area. And that pianist, that the
Oh
VU.
my goodness, she was incredible.
Oh my
Foley.
God! Yes,
Yeah,
that
amazing.
I wasn't envisioning myself at the Chicago Symphony. That's the level of entertainment we got.
Well, I think we need to pack the house next year.
Oh yeah,
We need-
definitely.
We need standing room only.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so mark your calendars next year because we're going to be talking about it again. And please, you're going to hear some awesome talent. Chad Clifford is one name that everyone should be familiar with. Fredersen,
Frank Ravalli.
Frank Raleigh, and so some awesome talent. So with that, I'm going to close out the show. And by the way, I do have to mention we've had a change in programming, and Ken Davison is not going to be on the show, but he's going to be on sometime. We are going to have Recovery Radio here in just a bit and introduce their guest in just a few minutes. And Terry, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it. This is kind of neat, and to find out what you do and find out some of the things that you do. And I may be in contact with you about getting in one of these sessions.
I'd love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need self-reflection.
Who doesn't? Thanks, man.
Thank you, and have a safe week, and we will be with you in just a bit on Recovery Radio.